Here we have SRAM'S all-new red eTap AXS group set. It's a group that I think most of us have already seen. We've seen it at races, at the Tour Down Under. Now I've had this bike now for about 3 months. It's a weird situation when you get a bike this early, because I haven't been able to take it to the office to show the rest of the guys. I haven't been able to go out on any group rides with it. I'm not even allowed to leave it outside a coffee shop when I'm taking a mid-ride break. So it's sort of riding it in stealth, riding it out in the countryside here, basically keeping it quite private. SRAM have completely gone to town on this new group. I think everybody knows that they've now gone 12 speed, but that 12th cog isn't really the story. What they've actually done is gone and looked at gear ratios and completely redressed and reshaped how road group sets are going to look. For example, with this AXS.Our that I've been riding, up front we've got a 48-35 chainset, which it sounds small, I know, and on the back we've got a 10-28. Now this is the equivalent of a traditional 11-speed 52-36 with 11-28 on the back. But what that actually means is you get a wider spread of gears. So with this 10-28 combo at the back compared to an 11-28, what you've got here is a bigger range. It encompasses the same amount of gears, but at the top end you've got a lighter gear and at the bottom end you've got a bigger gear. With this, you've actually got a 288% range compared to an 11-28 with a 52-36, you get about 255% range. So as you can see, for effectively the same, you're getting a wider spread, which means we're going to have to start thinking about gear ratios all over again. So if you think you've learned, do I need a 53-39, 52-36, 50-34, you need to throw all those out the window and have a look at SRAM'S new gear charts, which you can find on the BikeRadar accompanying story to this video. As we all know, eTap's main focus was that it was a wireless system. Some criticisms of the old system were, it's a little bit slower than a traditional mechanical group. SRAM seems to have addressed that on this system because we've got new motors in both mechs, so it's a little bit faster. There's a new onboard chipset, which they say has improved shift speed and reaction times. I've been riding the original eTap now for more than 2 years, getting on for 3 years, whether it's the rim brake or the disc brake group set. I've got both on bikes at home. This does feel a little bit slicker. It's sort of very, very slightly, but it just feels just as good as the old system. And I trust them to, if they say it's quicker, it's milliseconds faster. Make your mind up whether that's that important to you. The one thing I do like about this new group, especially on the disc side of things, is that SRAM have finally addressed making disc brakes for the road and not just co-opting something from their mountain bike parts bin. So the calipers have been slightly reworked, they just look a little bit slicker, they look a little bit smoother, but they have gone now to the trouble of designing rotors specifically for the road group set. These have just really nice kind of aerodynamically shaped carriers, the same real nice quality stainless steel rotor, and of course, for anybody that would care about the impending doom of being sliced to pieces, all the edges are rounded now. Obviously at the front end of the group set, this new chain set with a new reduced ring size, they've gone for a whole new design here. So BCDs and chainring bolts are out the window. We've now got a direct mount system. The chain rings themselves, the pairings are machined in one piece. Looks super, super slick. Shift speed and the accuracy on this front has been tremendously good. Now, up front, the shift levers are the same, they work in the same way, so right click harder, left click lighter, both together shifts the front. They have reworked the hood cover a little bit, so now it's got a bit more of an ergonomic shape. There's a nice bit of grip on there, and there's a new treatment on it. The chrome work on everything does elevate the group and make it look pretty slick. Obviously a group set's going to live or die on the quality of its chain. It ensures the shifting, it ensures the smooth running. And what SRAM have done here is worked with their drivetrain development team up in Germany, and it's produced down in Portugal by their own chain factory. The new chain looks different obviously because it's 12 speed, it's narrower, you've got this hollow pin design to keep the weight down, but what they've actually done is change the shape of the individual plates. Now in a traditional chain, the plates are sort of figure of 8, kind of jelly bean shaped. With this new group, what they've done is they've made the top edge completely flat. Now they tell us that they've done this because they introduces more material where it's needed, increasing the strength while still maintaining that small profile. Another thing they've done is out the back, where you've got the 12-speed cassette, where you'd imagine real estate's going to be a lot tighter because they've added that extra cog. What they've managed to do with the combination of this new profiles on the individual sprockets is actually give us more space between. What that means is either side of the gear you're in, there's more space between the sprockets. That means when you're actually riding the bike, it's much, much quieter than the previous system. With the rear mech, obviously we've already mentioned that there's a new motor in there that's got a bit more power, and there's a new chipset on board which increases the speed. But the actual physical shape of the mech has changed a little, and that's all to do with now that it's part of an AXS family for eTap. Rest assured this mech is going to work across a whole swathe of different products. When you take a look at the mech, the first thing you'll notice is on the jockey wheels, they're much bigger than on the previous one, so maybe, you know, that whole trend for oversized jockey wheels in the peloton had something in it. But when you see the actual shaping of the jockey wheels, it's got a tall, short tooth patterning, a bit like SRAM already used on their front chainrings on 1x systems. And like on the previous generation eTap, where you had two different rear mechs, so you had the long cage one for the wider cassettes for your 1132 Y-Fly, and then you had the short cage mech for every other. With the new system and the new ratios that we've got going on at the back here, that actually means that there's only one need for one mech. And then if we stay at the back again, when you're looking at the rear cassette, you'll notice that it's a fairly tight block apart from the last few sprockets. This is where we think they've also got a really good edge. So if you take this cassette, for instance, there's 1028, which is the equivalent of 1128. And this, you've got the cogs from 10 to 17, so that's 7 different sprockets. You've got a 1-tooth jump. So the gear progression is really tight, really nice, feels really, really good. If you take the equivalent 1128 cassette, that only has 5 1-tooth jumps, and then it starts to jump up and up and up. So for people that really start to feel when gear jumps are so big it affects your cadence, this might be something worth looking at, because those shifts between gears are so tight and so clean. I think it's something where you're going to see a lot of time trial riders are going to like it, and a lot of kind of really high-end elite riders that do ride so much on their cadence. Because it's an electronic system, it means SRAM have been able to introduce a few little tricks to enable you to customize the setup a little. It comes with an accompanying app, so you can assign each shifter to do whatever you want. If you don't like downshifts on the right, you can change that. You can change the 2 clicks together, or you can assign just one button to change the front mech. And SRAM also offer their satellite blips shifters. You've got extra ports on the shift unit, so you can just add them, stick them wherever you want on the bars, and through the app you can assign those blips to do whatever you want. The world's your oyster on however you want to set it up. Also on the app, you can actually assign different semi-automatic or fully automatic systems. So you've got your complete manual shifting as per normal, and then the 2 extras are, the first is called sequential, and that basically means that you only operate the rear mech up and down. When it gets to that certain point in the cassette, it'll automatically change the front for you. And whilst it's changing the front, it will compensate on the back so it hits the next available best gear. Now the second way, and this is one I've been experimenting with quite a bit and actually think is a really clever little piece of automation, is called compensation. And that just means that when you change the front mech, so whether you shift to big to small, small to big, on the back it will automatically compensate your gear by either 1 or 2 sprockets just to put you in that next gear. It's really, really nice when you're climbing and you're on the kind of undulating slope where you're going from steep gradients to shallower gradients, and you just want to put a little bit of an attack on or whatever. This is just really, really helping you out on it. And the other thing I've found as well is just putting that compensation system on, which you can switch on and off as you're riding just with a button hidden on the back of the lever. Is like at the end of 4 or 5 hours out on the bike where you're really tired, it just takes some thinking time out. Obviously for Di2 users this will be very similar. It's just a system that Shimano have had on their latest generation Di2 now for a couple of years. But again, it was a good idea then, it's a good idea now, and it's something that I'm really enjoying playing around with. And then one of the last additions to the group is that there is a power meter option. Obviously because SRAM family, they have Quark, one of the leading power meter manufacturers in the world. The new Chainset is D0 compatible. That means it's retrofittable for Quark's own power meter, or you can just buy it with this option. It's quite neat because the power meter actually fits onto the direct mount crank system. You're taking something away to add something back in, so the net weight gain is only 36 grams. That's pretty marginal when you're getting the extra power. Obviously there's a big cost involved with switching to the power meter, but it's still really nicely integrated. So I guess you all want to know how it rides. I've been riding it for a few months now, back to back with my own bike, which has the old eTap HRD system on it, and this is better all round. It is that bit slicker, the shifting's that bit nicer. The automated features I really like, it's really clever. The braking's as good as ever. If anything, it's a little bit slicker, a little bit sharper, a little bit quieter, especially on the big long descents. In all honesty, it has really blown me away. I guess the big question is, would I replace the eTap that I've got on my bike with this? Truthfully, probably not. because I think the old eTap system is still a fantastic group. But when it comes to replacing that bike and buying a new bike, this is definitely going to be on my shopping list. The one real standout feature are just how well this group set performs. That's aside obviously from the gear ratios and that wider spread. It's just the silence, you know, the quiet running and the smoothness of it. It really is a big step up from pretty much any group that we've seen before. They've been able to do this for some real clever tech that's built into this rear mech. And this clever tech has also meant that for the first time we are going to see red eTap one-by systems. So if you've ever fancied your gravel bike, your cross bike, just to go wireless for the cleanness of it and the smooth operation, that can now be done. And it's all down to this very clever little gizmo that's built into this rear mech. Now obviously for a one-by system you're going to need a clutch because you need to maintain that chain tension. But a mechanical clutch on an electronic system is a really difficult thing to achieve. So the clever thing SRAM have done here is they've built a fluid damper into the pivot point at the axle where the cage and jockey wheel meet the mech itself. Effectively this works just like a clutch. So if you imagine pushing your hand through water nice and slowly, open fingered, you've got no resistance whatsoever, but as soon as you close that hand and try and force it, you'll be met with a big resistance. That's the principle on what this damper is doing at the back, and it works remarkably well. I probably shouldn't have done, but as through testing this bike, it's a super lightweight road bike, but I've rode it down steps on purpose just to see if I can get this mech to unseat, get the chain to drop. I haven't managed to do it yet, so I think you know, if you're riding Roubaix cobbles or anything like that, I'd have absolute faith that this mech is going to perform. Now the new red eTap AXS comes in a whole myriad of options for your traditional road groups. The equivalent of a 5339 with 1125, you've got the 5037 with a 1026. And then obviously there's the group set that's on the bike that I've been riding, which is a 4835 with a 1028. That's the equivalent of a 5236 with an 1128. And then for compact users, instead of a 5034 with an 1132, you get a 4633 with a 1033. There's also one-by options, lots of different chainring sizes available. You've also got an aero group, which has an aero chain set to supply the needs for all the TT and triathletes out there. And then finally, which is probably the most surprising addition to the groups that we've seen, for all the disc deniers out there, there is a rim brake option on the new Group 2. And finally, you're going to want to know about pricing. Obviously, it's a premium group set, it doesn't come cheap, but the price varies because there's so many options out there. From the cheapest being the one-by rim, just over $3,000, that's £2,759, to the most expensive, which is hydraulic disc 2-by with the power meter, and that one comes in $3,688, that's £3,362. So if you're looking for your next superbike build, then I'd thoroughly recommend this new red eTap. One thing SRAM did let slip to me whilst we were talking over the bike is that there is a more affordable version of eTap AXS coming. It's not that far away, just a couple of months away. So those of us that can't afford £7.5 bikes like this, there's going to be something for us. So let us know in the comments what you think, and don't forget to like and subscribe.